Every year, the World Economic Forum annual meeting brings together top decision makers from government, business, and of course civil society to address major global issues and priorities for the year ahead. Some stakeholders believe that this year's meeting may have ended with more questions than answers. For instance, the issues of rebuilding trust amid uncertainty and rapid change persists. How will fractured diplomatic relations lead to improved global security and cooperation? Is there an easy way to implement strategy for nature, climate, and energy? Well, Babajide Ogunsoro, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television data analyst, is right here to share more insights. You're welcome again, Babajide.
Good evening, Ayotunde.
All right, so let's get into it. Now, is there a way to measure the value that Nigeria gets from attending the, events such as this? I mean, the annual World Economic Forum. Let's start with that.
There is no easy way, Ayo. There's no easy way to measure the value Nigeria gets out of attending the World Economic Forum every year at Davos. But there's something that we can clearly understand, even though we can't find out how much value Nigeria gets. What we can understand tonight is how important is the World Economic Forum to Nigeria. And I'd like to explain in just about a minute by using what's in front of us. This year, the World Economic Forum happened between January 15th and 19th. So for 1 minute, I would like you to imagine if Nigeria, represented here during this same period, were hosting the African Economic Forum, and other African countries were coming to Nigeria because Nigeria was the host of the African Economic Forum. What will Nigeria do? What's the probability that Nigeria will either, one, stay to welcome other African countries, or two, will the Nigerian government japa to the World Economic Forum? Ayotunde, we'll go into the numbers briefly, but looking at the numbers, if Nigeria were even hosting the African Economic Forum at this same period, the likelihood is that the Nigerian government will abandon its own African Economic Forum and attend the World Economic Forum. What I mean is, looking at our numbers, most recent numbers, Nigeria's annual trade, 49 trillion naira. However, 97% of that number, you heard me right, 97% of Nigeria's trade with the world is with Europeans, Asians, and Americans. In other words, Nigeria doesn't do significant trade even with its African brothers. So the World Economic Forum for Nigeria is more important than an African Economic Forum. Let's take a look at these numbers. The last full year numbers, 2022, 49 trillion naira worth of trade. However, 41% of that trade with Europe, 38% of that trade with Asia, 13% of that trade with America, only 7% of that trade with Africa. Look at what happened 2 years ago. It was even 9%. Going by these numbers, Ayotunde, if Nigeria continues on this trajectory, by 2027, less than 5% of Nigeria's trade will be with Africa. So the question we need to really ask ourselves is, does Nigeria even believe in Nigeria? That's the focus. We clearly understand why the World Economic Forum is important to Nigeria, because that is where Nigeria does its trade with. But looking at the other side, we need to now start asking ourselves, does Nigeria believe in Nigeria? Does Nigeria believe in Africa?
So which brings me to the next question. What next for Nigeria with respect to growth and development now that WEF has already ended?
So for a lot of years, Nigeria has focused on growing. The president in his speech is talking about 3.76% minimum growth rate. The question economists are asking now is, it's not only about the speed of growth, it's about the quality of growth. In simple terms, how inclusive is your growth? And the United Nations provides us with some metrics to look at where does Nigeria stand with reference to inclusiveness of growth. And if we take a look at the numbers in front of us, especially if we benchmark those numbers with the sort of performance and results other similar nations that we want to compete with, Brazil, Russia, India, on a score out of 100, The United Nations says the United Kingdom scores 93.6 out of 100, the US 88.5. Look at where we fall. We are significantly below countries we compare ourselves with, 14.5 out of 100 on living condition assessment score by the United Nations. And so these are the sort of metrics the president needs to also keep an eye on, not just only looking at how fast we're growing. We need to look at what is the quality of this growth. And right now, the United Nations is saying our growth lacks quality.
Now, Babajide, big tech and, of course, AI, artificial intelligence, are expected to play major roles, this year as far as a global economy or global, let's put it that way, is concerned. But how much do you think Nigeria is ready to compete? Or how are we really ready to compete in that sphere?
Big tech, artificial intelligence, that is the future of the world. But what Nigeria needs to first understand is there are two places that will point to us how prepared we are, our educational system and our industries. So yes, the world is talking about artificial intelligence and maximizing those opportunities. What Nigeria needs to first do is to maximize the opportunities of its human intelligence. Because looking at our educational and industrial sectors, we can't compete on the global scale. And these are not Babajide Ogunsanwo's words. Even the United Nations provides us metrics on how ready is Nigeria and the rest of the world on artificial intelligence. And if we take a careful look at how ready Nigeria is relative to the rest of the world, it provides us insights about how much speed the government needs to put into it. Frontier technology readiness, those were the exact words of the United Nations. It says the top 3 countries on that list, look at it, US, UK, Russia. Look at where Nigeria is, 32 out of a score of 100.
So we really have a lot of work to do. Really have a lot of work
Clearly, so we now understand why the World Economic Forum is important to Nigeria, how much belief does Nigeria even have in Nigeria and Africa, and clearly, what does the future like? The future for Nigeria right now, exploiting opportunities for our human intelligence.
And we'll leave it at that.
Back to the basics.
Thank you so much.
Basics.
Back to the basics. Thank you so much once again for your analysis on the News at 10.